What is up guys, Randomodium here, and today we're going to be talking about burst mages. This video is a follow-up on my how to find your ideal playstyle, class, and subclass video, so if you haven't watched that one yet, I highly recommend it. In this video we will be covering AHRI, ANNI, Brand, LEBLANC, Lissandra, Lux, ORIANNA, SYNDRA, Twisted Fate, and VEIGAR. Anivia, Talia, and Victor were moved to the Battle Mage class, but I've already done a Battle Mage video for the year, so I will have to cover those champions in another video in the future. Also, I want to give a very special thank you to all of the Burst Mage mains who helped me with this video. I've left a link to all of their subreddits in the video description below. Burst Mages are commonly known as combo mages. They are called this because they rely on hitting a crowd control ability and then mashing every button they have, like that annoying kid who keeps beating you in fighting games. Fuck you, Dylan, your character doesn't require any skill. Essentially, burst mages have a cheat code where they can push QWER and delete an enemy champion from the map. Burst mages are ranged champions who typically have greater range on their spells than battle mages, but less range than artillery mages. They have extremely high burst damage, either in the form of single target point and click abilities, AoE skill shot abilities, or a combination of both. All burst mages also have at least one form of hard crowd control that prevents their target from moving out of the way of the rest of their combo. However, burst mages are extremely squishy and are also extremely cooldown dependent. Within the Burst Mage class, each individual Burst Mage can be defined in three ways: mobility, CC reliability, and AoE damage potential. Some Burst Mages are decent in two areas, but no Burst Mage is great in all three areas. AHRI and LEBLANC are the most mobile of the Burst Mages, having almost assassin-like qualities. LEBLANC is the more slippery of the two, but AHRI has safer poke damage and wave clear. However, in exchange for this mobility, AHRI and LEBLANC have less reliable crowd control and less AoE damage than other burst mages. Twisted Fate and ANNI have some of the most reliable crowd control in the game. The difference between the two is Twisted Fate has increased range and roaming ability, while ANNI has more AoE damage. VEIGAR and SYNDRA have amazing AoE stuns that have large areas of effect that are relatively easy to hit. They also have high AoE damage. However, they both lack mobility. VEIGAR has more scaling, while SYNDRA has more snowballing potential. ORIANNA, Lux, and Brand have the best AoE damage among burst mages, which makes them amazing team fighters. However, they are all very immobile. Lux plays very similar to an artillery mage, while ORIANNA is able to control a large area of the battlefield with her ball, similar to some battle mages. Lux and ORIANNA also have decent CC reliability. Brand has arguably the highest AoE damage in the game, but he sacrifices mobility, CC reliability, and even some range in order to deal the massive amount of damage that he does. At the center we have Lissandra. Lissandra has a blend of mobility, CC reliability, and AoE, but she isn't amazing in any one area, and she sacrifices some range in exchange for so much versatility. Every burst mage is most commonly played in mid lane except for Brand, who is most commonly played support. However, Brand can also be played in mid lane. Some other burst mages like ANNI and Lux can also be played support, while Lissandra is also seen in top lane. Keep in mind that the runes, masteries, and items builds that I suggest for the following champions are only the most common seen in Platinum and above games. If you want to get full details on the best, most up-to-date runes, masteries, and builds, I highly recommend that you check out each champion's subreddit.
Don't you trust me?
AHRI, the Nine-Tailed Fox. AHRI is one of the most versatile burst mages in the game. She has decent range and good wave clear, while also having some of the highest mobility among burst mages. AHRI also has decent sustain from her passive, allowing her to stay in lane and hold off an enemy push longer than other champions. In exchange for all this versatility, AHRI gives up raw damage power. Her combo, while quite potent, isn't on the same level as some of the more immobile burst mages. AHRI relies on snowballing off of her lane opponent. If she can't do that, then AHRI needs to push out her lane and roam to create plays for her team. The difference between a good and a bad AHRI is knowing the full potential of your abilities. AHRI gains bonus movement speed when her Q is traveling. This means when roaming, AHRI can fire her Q to get a boost of movement speed that allows her to get to another lane faster. Additionally, if AHRI fires her Q backwards while roaming, this boost to her movement speed lasts a bit longer since it takes the orb a tiny bit more time to reach her if she fires in the opposite direction of which she is traveling. Good AHRI players also know that her Q range is slightly longer than the indicated range, which allows you to hit enemies at max range, which guarantees both procs of damage and keeps you at the safest range possible. Great AHRIs are masters of their ult and flash. You can do some really amazing plays utilizing your ult and flash to guarantee charms on the priority targets in teamfights. You can also use your ult or flash to reposition with your orb to ensure maximum damage to the enemy team, since her orb does true damage on the return trip. AHRI is a great burst mage if you like the burst mage combination of damage and crowd control, but you don't want to completely sacrifice on mobility.
You smell like burning.
Annie, the Dark Child. Annie is one of the original burst mages in the game, along with VEIGAR. What's really great about Annie, though, is she was around 8 when the game released back in October of 2009, which means that she should be legal once Season 10 hits the Rift. I'm just joking. What's actually great about Annie is she's known for being one of the best champions in the game for beginners to pick up, while simultaneously having enough depth and versatility that you can play her all the way up to the highest levels and ranked and still be successful. One of the primary reasons why Annie is such a great champion for beginner players is her last hitting is extremely easy. Annie can last hit minions with her Q, and as long as her Q kills the minion, she has her mana refunded and half of the cooldown refunded, essentially giving Annie unlimited uses of her Q in the laning phase. What Annie is really known for is the stun on her passive. Every 5th spell Annie casts will stun her target. This allows her to have a point-and-click stun on her Q, an AoE stun on her W, or an even more terrifying AoE stun on her ultimate. Annie is an absolute terror anytime her stun, her ultimate, or her flash is available, and she can single-handedly win a team fight with proper positioning. Her point-and-click stun also allows her to lock down mobile champions with ease, making her an awesome counter to most assassins, which other burst mages normally struggle against. Her E is also a very underutilized component of her kit, which allows her to negate a lot of the damage of high burst champions like assassins and burst mages when timed properly. Annie also has a very long auto attack range that she can use to harass her opponent in lane. However, Annie doesn't have a lot of range on her spells when compared to other mages, and since Annie is also very immobile, this makes her struggle against champions with a lot of range and crowd control who can kite her. Since Annie often relies on her flash for engaging, and otherwise she is very immobile, this also makes her very susceptible to ganks or collapses if she overextends or tries to trade in a bad spot. Annie is great if you're willing to give up some range and mobility in order to have a very easy time last hitting, a very reliable stun for team fights and duels, and a massive amount of burst damage when fed.
Ready to set the world on fire.
Brand, the Burning Vengeance. From one fire mage to another. While Annie is all about her stun, Brand is all about damage. Every single one of Brand's abilities, including his passive, does damage. There are very few champions in the game that can boast such a damage focus as that. Brand is an absolute terror in team fights, dealing some of the highest AoE damage in the game. Unlike a lot of other champions, a lot of Brand's power is in his passive, allowing each of his spells to burn enemies for % of their maximum health. Furthermore, if Brand lands 3 stacks, then the target explodes, dealing up to 16% of their maximum health in a large AoE. This means that if an enemy team stays too close together, once Brand unleashes his full combo, then he can deal up to 80% maximum health damage to every person on the enemy team. No other champion in the game can boast damage potential like that. While this damage is absolutely terrifying, it is all that Brand brings to the fight. Brand has a very short range on his abilities and is very immobile. On top of this, his 1 CC ability, his Q, is the hardest CC ability to hit among burst mages, and will only trigger his stun if he's already hit the same champion with another spell recently. Brand truly is the Inferno incarnate, a being of terrifying destructive power. If you ever wanted the power of a raging wildfire in your hands, then Brand is the right champion for you.
Surprised to see me?
LeBlanc, the Deceiver. LeBlanc is the burst mage closest to assassins, and blurs the line of where a burst mage ends and an assassin begins. True to her Deceiver nature, LeBlanc is a high skill cap champion that relies on timing, misdirection, and preying on enemies separated from their team. LeBlanc has a very good wave clear with a combination of her W, her Q, and her passive, allowing her to push out lanes and roam. However, unlike other burst mages, LeBlanc has to put herself closer to danger to clear minion waves, which makes it very difficult for her to stop enemy sieges when she is at a numbers disadvantage. LeBlanc excels in skirmish situations where she can choose to pick off a lone opponent or roam to ambush an unsuspecting enemy. Anytime LeBlanc disappears into the fog of war, her enemies need to be wary, because LeBlanc can travel between lanes extremely quickly and can ignore terrain with her W. Combine this with the fact that LeBlanc can send an illusion of herself anywhere on the map, and you have the potential to paralyze a team with fear if you're a fed LeBlanc. However, all this power comes with a price. LeBlanc has a very high skill cap and is extremely squishy. A single misstep, a single misspell, and her illusions completely crumble, leaving her defenseless. LeBlanc is a great champion if you're looking for a hybrid between burst mage and assassin with a high skill cap that rewards flawless play.
You can't stop an avalanche.
Lissandra, the Ice Witch. Lissandra is the jack of all trades when it comes to burst mages. Her W and her ultimate can be potent forms of crowd control. Her Q and her ultimate can be used for great AoE damage. Her E is both a great escape tool and a great engage tool. And her ultimate can basically act as a self Zanya's, which also heals her, slows her enemies, and deals AoE damage. What Lissandra gives up for all of this versatility is range. Lissandra needs to get into the middle of a fight to be effective, which is why a lot of people consider her more of a battle mage than a burst mage. That said, Lissandra can burst quite strong, and she has extremely potent crowd control. Her Q and her ultimate are an AoE slow, her W is an AoE root, and her ultimate can use offensively as a stun. Alternatively, Lissandra can use her ultimate defensively to make herself untargetable while simultaneously healing herself. Knowing when to use her ultimate offensively versus defensively is one of the major things that separates a good Lissandra from a bad one. Because Lissandra has such short range with tons of AoE damage and CC potential, it is extremely important that Lissandras understand macro movements and choose the optimal time to engage. A Lissandra who engages at the right time can be like an atom bomb going off in the middle of an enemy team. Engage at the wrong time and you'll have about as much effect as a Roman candle. Lissandra is a great champion for people who want a little bit of everything and are willing to sacrifice a little bit of range and safety for all of that versatility.
Hope you like rainbows!
Lux, the Lady of Luminosity. Lux is the longest ranged of the burst mages and is considered to be a hybrid artillery mage. Lux also has the most potent crowd control in the game, her laugh. Lux's laugh is arguably the most tilting sound in all of League of Legends, and tilt is the most powerful crowd control of all. Lux's laugh is so powerful that there are some of you watching this video who have become tilted just by me playing her laugh. Your tilt runs so deep that just by hearing her voice in this video, it brings back the awful memories of being anally raped by a laser the width of an entire lane. All of Lux's abilities are skill shots, so she's incredibly reliant on predicting her enemies' movements. Her E is great for wave clear, her Q is an amazing form of CC, her W gives some great utility for her and her team, and her ultimate is a freaking laser beam. What more do you want? What Lux gives up for her insane range and damage is mobility. Any champion that can close the distance on Lux and not be immediately deleted by her combo is a huge threat to her. Assassins, divers, and vanguards all fall into these categories. A general rule when playing Lux is always remember to play like a bitch and kill steal. I mean kill secure from your team with your ultimate. And remember, always blind laugh to an easily accessible key to ensure maximum tilt of your opponent. Because if you aren't tilting your opponent, then you aren't having enough fun.
They come apart so easily. How do you put them back together again?
Orianna, the Lady of Clockwork. Orianna is the queen of mid lane, an immovable pillar who has endured pretty much every single meta without ever being terribly overpowered or underpowered. She has been played professionally in every single region and even at the World Championship through multiple seasons. This is because Orianna is inherently a very safe champion while still providing great playmaking opportunity thanks to the versatility of her ball. Orianna has extremely good wave clear at all phases in the game, allowing her to hold mid lane longer than most other champions even when she's outnumbered. Orianna also has very good trading in lane thanks to her passive and the shield provided by her E. Her ball has an extremely long range which gives her fantastic poke and zoning tools while allowing her to remain in a relatively safe position. While in play, Orianna's ball basically creates a zone where enemies can't enter without risking their health bar being deleted, allowing Orianna to be one of the best mages in the game at controlling an area. However, nearly all of Orianna's damage comes from her ball, and her ball does have a relatively slow travel time when compared to other spells, allowing her to be easily punished if she mispositions her ball. Once Orianna gets some items, she becomes a fantastic team fighter, able to deal some of the highest AoE damage in the game with her combo. A lot of Orianna's power comes from her ultimate, which is also her only form of hard crowd control. This makes Orianna's gank assistance and roaming potential much weaker than other burst mages before level 6 or whenever her ultimate is down. However, when up, Orianna's ultimate is one of the most terrifying forms of hard crowd control and AoE damage in the game. The difficulty of Orianna is you have to control not only Orianna, but her ball as well. You essentially have to play two characters simultaneously, and if you misposition with either character, then you're dead. I can't tell you how many times I've seen an Orianna miss an ultimate because she wasn't keeping track of where her ball was, and a major mistake like that is often what decides who wins or loses a team fight. Thus, Orianna's ball is a double-edged sword. It provides her with amazing range, damage, and safety in the right hands, and it can be a downright liability in the wrong ones. If you're looking for a mid laner who never goes out of style, and who has one of the most rewarding gameplay mechanics in the game, then I highly recommend you try out Orianna.
People fear what they cannot understand.
SYNDRA, the Dark Sovereign. SYNDRA is the queen of planning and execution, a burst mage who relies exclusively on projecting her power through her orbs in ways that threaten her enemies while simultaneously protecting herself. Many people complain that SYNDRA is a no-skill champion because of her ultimate, when in reality SYNDRA has an incredibly high skill cap for a champion. All of her damage, save for her ultimate, is from skill shots. Both her Q and her W have delays, which means she needs to predict her enemy's movements in order to hit with them. Furthermore, her E requires her to line up her balls with her enemies in order to land the stun. Even her ultimate, her most complained about skill, is only useful if SYNDRA has prepped the battlefield with her balls or has hit with her other abilities first. SYNDRA, more than any other burst mage, relies on tempo and preparation in order to maximize her effectiveness. However, when done properly, she is one of the most terrifying burst mages in the game, with her ability to stun an entire team with her E and her ability to 100 to 0 a carry with her ultimate. SYNDRA's price for all of this power is lack of mobility and tankiness. This makes SYNDRA's playstyle very kill or be killed in nature. High burst champions can kill SYNDRA if they can get close enough, but SYNDRA can also kill them if they miss position. Where SYNDRA really struggles the most are with high mobility champions. SYNDRA is all about controlling the space around her and prepping the battlefield for the right time to strike. Champions who can bring the fight to SYNDRA before she has had time to prepare, or who can avoid her E with dashes or blinks, can foil all of her well-laid plans. SYNDRA delivers on her theme in such a visceral way, so if you've always wanted to be a mage of supreme power, then SYNDRA is definitely somebody that you want to check out.
Lady Luck is smiling.
Twisted Fate, the Card Master. Twisted Fate is the most opportunistic of the burst mages, always looking to take advantage of his opponent's mistakes. If you ever engage in a fair fight with Twisted Fate, then you're doing something wrong. TF is all about bending the rules and cheating the game, creating massive amounts of map-wide pressure with the ability to turn any team fight into one in his favor. In line with his cheating theme, Twisted Fate has arguably the easiest and one of the most effective stuns in the game, a point-and-click stun on a low cooldown that just relies on you selecting the correct card. Twisted Fate also has one of the longest range abilities in the game with his Q, allowing him to CS and poke from a safe range even when he's behind. TF even generates more gold than other champions, gaining additional gold for every minion he kills. But what really makes Twisted Fate an opportunist is his ultimate, allowing him to reveal all enemy champions on the map and teleport over 5,000 units away. This allows Twisted Fate to instantly turn an even fight into one where his team has an advantage, or to pick off straggling enemies who think they've escaped to safety. This allows TF to pick up a lot of additional gold around the map and snowball other lanes to his advantage. This is all extremely necessary as Twisted Fate because he isn't very strong by himself. Many other champions outrange him, many other champions outdamage him. In a straight up fight, Twisted Fate often loses unless he has a significant gold lead, experience lead, or health lead. Twisted Fate doesn't fight fair because he wants to, he doesn't fight fair because he has to. Always keep this in mind when you're playing Twisted Fate. If you're trying to 1v1 a full health opponent with Twisted Fate, then chances are you're doing it wrong. Think like a card shark and always stack the deck in your favor. You still get 300 gold for a kill, whether that kill is a 1v1 or a 1v3, so why would you ever fight a fair 1v1? Twisted Fate is the ultimate cheater, complete with map hacks and teleportation, giving him more global map pressure than any other burst mage in the game. If you like to fight smart, rather than fight fair, then Twisted Fate is a great champion for you.
I am evil! Stop laughing!
VEIGAR, the Tiny Master of Evil. VEIGAR is a testament that big things can come in small packages, and that size, in some instances, doesn't matter. VEIGAR might have a tiny wand after all, but he definitely knows how to use it. One of the original 40 champions in League, VEIGAR, along with Annie, is one of the original burst mages in League. What makes VEIGAR unique is his ability to stack AP with every minion he kills or every champion that he hits with an ability. This gives VEIGAR theoretically infinite power, and it's not uncommon for VEIGAR to have over 1,000 AP by the end of the game. VEIGAR shares this infinite scaling mechanic with Nasus, and like Nasus, VEIGAR gives up a strong early game in order to have his infinite scaling. This is compounded by the fact that VEIGAR, like Nasus, needs to use his Q, which is his primary damage tool in lane, to farm minions rather than harass his opponent. This leaves VEIGAR very susceptible to all-ins, since VEIGAR, unlike Nasus, isn't very tanky. VEIGAR's advantage is that his increased AP increases the damage of all of his spells, and can even give him pretty incredible tower-taking ability in the late game, since auto-attacks against towers deal 50% of your AP damage. VEIGAR also has great scaling on all of his abilities. His W scales with 100% of his AP, which allows him to do over 1,000 AoE damage alone with just that spell in the late game. And his ultimate scales with up to 150% of his AP, depending on how low health his target is, making it an amazing tool to delete squishy champions. Arguably, VEIGAR's most important ability though is his E, Event Horizon, which is a massive AoE cage that stuns anyone who comes in contact with the edge of it. Proper use of this ability can pretty much guarantee at least one kill, since the opponent stunned by your cage is guaranteed to be hit with the rest of your combo. Where VEIGAR comes up short is his mobility. VEIGAR is an extremely immobile burst mage, and his E, his only form of hard CC, has a massive cooldown. This makes VEIGAR extremely susceptible to ganks anytime he is pushed up in lane or his E is down. You can't really blame him though. His stride length is only about half of what a full-size champion is. VEIGAR is the ultimate late-game hyperscaling champion. If you can play safe and get around his shortcomings in the early game, then he's a phenomenal champion to pick up. So which of these burst mages is your favorite? Also, what kind of burst mages do you think Riot should develop in the future? Once again, if you have any questions on any of the burst mages, please leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer it or point you in the right direction. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more, please give this video a thumbs up and let me know which subclass you want me to do next. And of course, if you've made it this far in the video and you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of my videos. I hope you all have a fantastic day. This is Randomonium, signing off.